passed definitively in the interest of Black people in jail. That's what it did, but I don't know if Biden was sitting in a room legislating like, well,
why is he doing this?
Sure, you know?
With the election upon us, millions of Americans are gearing up to cast their vote for the next president of the United States. While some people will be voting independent, we wanted to hear from Trump voters and Biden voters about why they are voting for their candidate. In Spectrum, we bring everyday people together for authentic discussions that represent what's happening now. These discussions should not be anyone's sole source forming opinions on important issues. Please do your own research, seek out experts, push yourself outside your bubble, and have empathy. Thanks for watching.
My name is Christine, and I am 23 years old, and I live in Houston, Texas. I think that the overall civic health of America is just so low, and I feel like the more we have these kind of conversations, the more people will start to think for themselves.
Hi, I'm Piper. I'm passionate about decolonization, systemic equality, socialism, and environmentalism.
My name is Pranav Kanduri. I'm currently a freshman at the University of Texas at Austin. It's one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. It's going to determine the future of our country in civil rights, human rights, the climate, and many other issues across the board.
My name is Leah Thomas, and I'm an environmental activist and the founder of the Intersectional Environmentalist Platform.
My name is Chris. I currently live in Santa Barbara, California. I think that a vote for Joe Biden in this election is a vote with the idea of prosperity for all in mind.
Hi, I'm Benjamin. I work at the Democratic Coordinated Campaign, and I help lead young Asian Americans for Biden. We cannot afford to be anything less than passionate as we fight to protect our families, our friends, our communities, and our futures.
Okay, so what I want to know, really, chat, I want to know, what were your sentiments in the primary? Did you really think that Joe Biden had better policy positions than Bernie Sanders? Did you think that Joe Biden's policy stood the greatest chance at achieving these terms of equity, of equality, of addressing injustices? Oh no, not again. The e-girl seems the most base. Or have they too accepted that they are making a concession? No, Bernie had the best? Right. I guess that's neither here nor there at this point. I don't know, Chad. I find that it's incredibly difficult for me to be enthusiastic about voting for Joe Biden, and that is just me. Obviously, that's just me. Everyone has their own unique perspective. It was really hard for me to even admit that I was endorsing Joe Biden. I cannot pretend like I'm excited about it. I wasn't enthralled in doing so. I provided my reasoning as to why I ended up voting for him, though. Biden choked up when his past brought up. No one on the left should be passionate about Joe Biden. Exactly. Well, again, I'm not even trying to gatekeep. But I will say that I find it highly suspect that anybody who considers themselves a leftist to be absolutely ecstatic about voting for Joe Biden.
More anti-Trump than pro-Biden. Piper?
Strongly agree.
Leah?
Strongly agree.
Pranav?
Strongly agree.
Benjamin?
Somewhat disagree.
Chris?
Strongly agree.
Christine?
Agree.
For what it's worth, Chad, I strongly agree.
As much as I absolutely hate Trump, there has to be especially young people, there needs to be that energy there for Biden. I know settle for Biden is huge. We'll take him because there's two choices. No, this is literally a choice between destruction of the environment and our futures, or building towards better progress. We have to be more enthusiastic, and we have to bring other people along, because otherwise, we're not going to win.
Definitely agree with what you just said, Benjamin. But at the same time, I can't deny like Joe Biden himself does not make me respond enthusiastically. Like I volunteered for the candidate I supported in the primary. It was the first time I'd ever done it. And it was because I was driven. Like I feel like I needed to. At the same time, I think I would vote for a Democratic ticket if it was literally any other Democratic candidate.
I understand the enthusiasm, Benjamin, and I think the reason why, like, so I didn't vote. I voted for Warren in the primary. I was very involved with the campaign, and like, if I could put anyone in the White House right now, it would be her. But I think like the supporting cast is so important. Like you said, I'm voting for a better future, and I don't think that Biden encompasses that entirely. I think that the entire Democratic coalition encompasses that.
Benjamin, you brought up a good point though. I've like read a bit about like why Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, and a lot of it was because she ran on a very like anti-Trump campaign. Because Hillary Clinton was like a very hated woman. Like a lot of people just don't like her.
Is that
like,
not what Joe
for not
Biden's
liking her
doing
as well.
though?
And her whole
Sorry
campaign
for
was just
speaking
like
over you,
beat
Piper.
Trump, beat
Rude.
Trump, beat Trump. And a lot of people, that wasn't enough for them to get excited behind. And so you kind of made me like rethink it a little bit. But I think also though, we can't get too excited about him now because we have to still make sure that there's room for criticism so we can hold him accountable once he actually gets elected.
Joe Biden is too old to be.
She is based so far, but I really feel like that is precisely what Joe Biden has done as well. He has postured himself as being the candidate who is better than Trump, right? And he has that to his advantage because we've seen the destruction that this administration has caused. So it's going to work in his favor, right? Maybe more so than Hillary Clinton in 2016, because at that point, we could only imagine what Trump would do to this country. Now we know. And this might be the reason why it is a little bit more of a successful campaign tactic to, remind everyone about how awful Trump is and how you're not as awful as Trump.
President. Piper.
Somewhat disagree.
Leah.
Disagree.
Pranav.
Disagree.
Benjamin.
Strongly disagree.
Chris.
Disagree.
Christine.
Disagree.
Let's say like all hell did break loose and like Joe Biden is now like just suddenly just becomes like cognitively incapable of doing the job. Kamala Harris, she's a beast.
It's
so
exactly
I mean
what the vice president's for,
right.
I think the only person who could really say like strongly agree is like a Pete voter. I mean, the person I voted for in the primary was also like 70 plus. So
his age kind of also fits with his demeanor or like his appeal. He is more like a grandfather figure of the like entire party. That age comes with a lot of experience, and like I think right now we need to return to some sort of normalcy.
I also really hate when people pick at a stutter that he's had for like his whole life that is incredibly ableist. Yeah, the candidate that I was supporting was older than him, and Trump's old, so it's fine.
I believe abortion is a human right. Piper.
Strongly agree.
Leah.
Agree.
Pranav.
Strongly agree.
Benjamin.
Strongly agree.
Strongly agree,
Strongly
Chad.
agree.
Christine.
Agree.
I feel like there's a separation of church and state, and people just keep forgetting that. I don't know why. And then also, I don't think anyone likes abortion, and that choice is one that is incredibly traumatic and hard for, I'm sure, a lot of people. And I just really don't like when people are like, well, no abortions, no sex education, no free contraception, no nothing. And it's like, there's so many other things that would actually help decrease the amount of abortions that are had if we could get better sex education in school, easier access to contraception and healthcare.
The word abortion is not in the Bible, step one. Step two, I'm not having an abortion. Like I would never do that if I'm in a situation and that's what I believe, but that's not my job to enforce that on other people. And going back to what you said, Leah, like sex education, or why not putting forth some type of like grant or something if people decide not to abort? Why not improving the foster care system? I mean, they're not giving us any other options. So you want me to have the baby, but you're not going to give me anything to support it. You're not going to improve minimum wage, and you're not going to do anything in my neighborhood.
So do you feel like maybe I can't help but wonder why these specific questions are asked whenever I think about Joe Biden's voting record from the high. Can you see me? This is awful. All right. Sorry. Looked like we had a little bit of an F there. We're back. So I can't help but, think about Joe Biden's voting record when it comes to the Hyde Amendment. All right. The Hyde Amendment and how he has been in favor of defunding abortion clinics. Right. He has been in favor of defunding Medicaid that would go to supporting abortion clinics specifically. And whether or not this is trying to maybe get the youngsters in a gotcha moment, and if they go over Joe Biden's voting record to make them, more familiar with his own voting decisions that he made in Senate that had direct consequences to these very talking points. Crisis averted. Good. Mini F, we back. I hope that we didn't get lost. Anyway, I'm not going to repeat what I said. I hope that you were just here to hear it. I hope that you just heard it, and we're going to get back to it. And I'm actually going to go wash my hands, chat. I'm really sorry to leave you here empty-handed, but BRB.
To make this safe for my child, so what's next?
First off, I don't believe that life starts at conception. I do not believe that constitutionally it makes sense for a fully grown woman to be constitutionally on the same level as a cluster of cells, and that they should have to sacrifice the right to their bodily autonomy. The second thing is also, I kind of compare it to prostitution. It's going to happen to some extent regardless, and making it legal and having there be institutions and infrastructure for it to be safe and affordable is a lot better, regardless of whether or not someone thinks that an abortion is good. You at least want a woman to be safe.
I think this is one of the biggest reasons to vote for Joe Biden, is because Trump has selected a Supreme Court nominee who is devout at overturning Roe v. Wade. If you support autonomy, I think you have to vote for Joe Biden.
Joe Biden has a racist past. Piper.
I said agree.
Leah.
Somewhat disagree.
Pranav.
Somewhat disagree.
Benjamin.
Somewhat disagree.
Chris.
Somewhat disagree.
Christine.
Somewhat disagree.
I think this just goes back to what do we define as racism? But just looking at his policies, which are kind of the only thing we can go off of, the 1994 crime bill, it almost exclusively targeted Black Americans. I know he also in the Obama administration, they had a lot of mass deportations, war crimes in the Middle East, and all these things put together. I can't determine his individual opinions, but all I can go off of is his policies, and he just has a pretty racist history.
I don't believe that Joe Biden, the person as an individual, is a racist man. But I do think he has had a history of not making choices that were the most equitable. But I also think some of those choices were a result of the cultural zeitgeist at the time. And I don't think that Joe Biden necessarily should be held to account for the worst parts of that legislation, because I don't think that the legislation was passed definitively in the interest of putting more Black people in jail. That's what it did because of the way everything was structured at the time. More Black people went to jail, but I don't think Joe Biden was sitting in a room legislating hell yeah, f these Black people for sure,
Even if, which I don't believe to be the case at all, even if he had some ball of hatred in his heart against communities of color, it's political suicide for him not to help communities of color.
As someone who has worked in the Biden campaign, he has plans to help African American communities. He has plans to help Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. They're on his website, they're part of the platform. We have the power to hold him to it and say we elected you to do these things. These are the things you promised us that you would do, and now we expect you, because we voted for you, we expect you to follow through on those promises.
Police departments should be defunded. Piper.
Strongly agree.
Leah.
Strongly agree.
Pranav.
Somewhat agree.
Benjamin.
Somewhat agree.
Chris.
Agree.
And Christine.
Somewhat disagree.
I feel like there's not, like, if we were to defund the police now, there's not structures in place to reallocate that funding efficiently. Like, I feel like in order to defund the police, we need to fund other things first, and then we can just like build the pipeline so that there's money to go into wherever we think is best. Like, I just worry that, like, if we were to defund the police now, it would just like get thrown back into the government, and then it would just like go somewhere else useless.
So I say somewhat disagree because like in Houston, I'm a part of like the Mayor Student Leadership Alliance. And something we've talked about with the mayor of Houston is that he doesn't feel like the police should be defunded, but he feels like the money that's in the police system right now should go towards bringing other people into the system to actually handle the issues that police are getting called for that have nothing to do with police, right? Homelessness, mental health issues. And so like when I did a lot of
So then take the money and allocate it to community development or improvement plans. Put it into a housing first policy. Take the money and put it into education. Fund after school programs. What do you mean? We don't need to expand the umbrella of the police force. We need to shrink it, not only the budget, but their operations as much as possible. Police should not be tasked with responding to individuals experiencing homelessness or mental health crises, right? Or, accidents that have already occurred. This is the antithesis of what we should be fighting for. We should be promoting not only the defunding of police, but also limiting their role in society as much as possible because they have proved to be pretty ineffective, right? They're not very good at doing their jobs. Why would we try to expand the umbrella of a police force? Oh no, I'm sorry, I can't agree with this at all. My apologies.
Like research and looking at what other Democratic candidates feel like, a lot of those people don't feel like there needs to be a defunding of the police, but more so a reform of the police structure and how they facilitate the issue. So I don't think that defunding the police will lead to better policing.
I think for me, after the aftermath of Ferguson, like which impacted my hometown, I just started having some questions like, why do they need tanks? Why do they need these grenades? Why are they at war with us? And that to me just made me take a step back with some of the equipment and resources that they have from the military. And Christine, I 100% agree. And I think when I support
they got these for free, right? The whole reason they have these weaponry and machinery is because this is from the military surplus and it cost nothing to have them, right? That's another issue. The fact that we have militarized our police forces in the way that we have. And I agree with everything Leah's saying. I'm being particular right now. But yes, this is precisely what I mean whenever I say that this is a bigger issue that goes beyond the scope of just what's happening in a local police precinct, right? A police precinct is just one slat of wood in an otherwise larger sense. Let's use the Jenga, right? The Jenga game as an example, right? The police precincts, right? The individual police precincts are just one of the little pieces of wood making up the greater system that has to be dismantled altogether in order to ensure that we are eliminating all instances of racism and oppression that stem far beyond police brutality. All right? That is my analogy to explain how this is a broader systemic failure, right? That goes well beyond the failures in a police precinct, right? Not to say that we shouldn't start at some point, and maybe it makes the most sense to call for defunding local police, right? It's still an issue of the magnitude, right? The magnitude of the system at large is still the issue that I was pointing to in my previous example. So now that I've gone back let's go back.
The police. I support dismantling the police, which is very different from abolishing the police, even though people like to spin it as that. And to me, there's already been enough police reform, especially since 2014. We've got the cameras, we've got trainings, but like there needs to be some sort of dismantling or restructuring or something, because whatever is happening is not working. But of course, I would never say get rid of the police, but I definitely don't think that they need to have tanks, especially if they're not doing implicit bias training.
I think defund the police like has such a bad connotation to it because it does sound like this abrupt, like take away all their money, but you can't fit a whole public policy plan into one slogan. And I think some of the like top like brains in policy writing that support defunding the police don't support just taking away all their funding and doing nothing with it. And I think honestly, if you reallocate the funds well enough, we won't even need police at all eventually. Because why do police exist? Because people are committing crimes. Why does crime exist? Because of poverty, because of, you know, all these other reasons. So I think obviously not all at once, but like if we gradually reallocate those funds into other resources, we could get rid of a lot of the things that even require the need for police, and maybe still have some law enforcement.
Wait, you want me to do my wings like Piper? If at least for election day? Wait, you just want me to do it for election day? Okay. LOL, yeah, this guy explains it clear as crystal. Are you memeing?
Enforcement that exists, but it will not be as big of a thing as it is now.
I think that is a very good point that one, a lot of these terms have like really strong connotations, right? So like when Leah said dismantle, I was like, Jesus, like, but like not even really like understanding the perception of dismantle that she had. And so I think I really strongly agree that like when we say defund the police, where does that money go, right? Because in my head, when I hear defund the police, I don't think that the police force is then going to take away their ability to buy tanks and all these different things. I immediately think that they're going to pay cops less. Right. And that's what I think a lot of people think, because what does defund mean? And so this is what concerns me, because like this is anyone, right? You get underpaid for something that you're really good at and you're like, excuse me. So I think that's a really good conversation to have.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would argue that police aren't necessarily good at doing their job, but I guess that could be the way that defund the police is misconstrued to or reduced down to pay police officers less. I think that the best take that we heard was from Piper, whose winged eyelash or winged eyeliner is perfection. That it's true that this is a greater public policy issue that has to be addressed, like I said, or rolled out in a comprehensive fashion, as comprehensive as the system itself. Amy, your mods are bullies? Are they? Who's being a bully? No bully. No bully, please. Also, something that I think something that we have to address are the failed policy positions, right? There is no federal mandate that every single police force has to have A, implicit bias training, and B, is required to wear a body camera. There's no federal mandate. So there has been no across the board reform that has applied, right? It's based on the state level, and only some police precincts do ensure that body cameras are worn at all times. But guess what? There has been no concerted effort to ensure that every single police member is given this implicit bias training, right? And also think about how often, not as often as I'm about to make it seem, but it just so happens coincidentally that every time, or not every time, I'm sorry, again, I'm using absolute language. There are plenty of examples where police officers who are required to wear body cameras all of a sudden have some sort of malfunction that that causes them to lose their cameras, whether it be turned off. It's that maybe the battery died. There's always some sort of excuse as to why their camera was turned off whenever they are involved with a murder, right? Whenever there is something that could evidence punitive measures taken by the police, right? Whenever they're acting out extrajudiciously, if they're carrying out some sort of extrajudicial crime or extrajudicial practice that would be malfeasance or something that would cause them to perhaps lose their job. It's so coincident. It's such a coincidence. It's so convenient that they end up having this malfunction, so we don't even know what is going on, right? So again, my point being is that a policy failure isn't just, a change or a practice that has failed to be mandated across the board. There is no reprimand. There's seemingly no reprimand issued to a police officer who acts out or is guilty of malfeasance on the job whenever they are directly responsible for the death of an individual in custody and their camera malfunction. So we don't have any proof as to what happened, right? We don't have that interaction that we can go back to. And it has much to do with the fact that qualified immunity is stonewalling any real attempt to hold police accountable for their actions. Cops are not implicitly biased, they're just biased.
Open to conservative ideas. Piper?
Somewhat disagree.
Leah?
Agree.
Pranav?
Somewhat agree.
Benjamin?
Agree.
Chris?
Somewhat disagree.
Christine?
Strongly agree. There are some
That's going to be a strongly disagree for me, just so we're clear.
conservative ideals that I do respect, right? Like, I think that a lot of what this boils down to is not the issue itself, but the implementation of the issue. Like, when I went to go look at the gun laws that, the Democrat primary candidates were looking at, a lot of candidates were saying that we should ban assault rifles. And then most of them said that they're not going to buy them back. And I'm like, okay, so we didn't prohibit this before. Some people spent X amount of dollars on this assault rifle, and you're not at least going to buy it back from them. Another thing I think about is like the social welfare programs, right? Do I think more people should be eligible for it? Yes. Is there any measure on a lot of these programs that get people off of the system integrated back into the workforce? No. So you have people who specifically take advantage of the system and specifically take advantage of us as taxpayers.
I think in life, I'm just generally invested in just giving more.
I just can't believe that this person points to how we have some people who may or may not cheat the system and they stay on welfare longer than they should. Meanwhile, corporate welfare is something that we could definitely dive into. Listen, if you're mad about some freeloaders, spending an additional month on unemployment and not putting their full effort into finding a job, wait till we tell you about the billionaire class who continues to receive massive amounts of tax cuts, who receive so much welfare from the government in the form of subsidies and other tax breaks, tax derivatives, all of that stuff. Just wait. I mean, if you are so mad about the people who are just trying to scrape by, live paycheck to paycheck, require government assistance, and maybe spend a month of their time not working as hard as they should to find a minimum wage job alongside their Uber gig, wait till we tell you about the total amount of subsidies that Elon Musk and who else? Fuck, why is my brain dropping? Christine is a boomer name. Elon Musk, all of the other technocrats that are part of Silicon Valley that receive so much money. Bezos. But never mind. The hedge fund managers of Wall Street, the hedge fund, they're up there. They're up there. Zuckerberg. There's plenty of names to go around. I don't want to detract too much from the point that I'm making, that these examples of corporate welfare and tax breaks to the richest people in this country is so much more substantial than the money that is even doled out for our welfare state in the form of social spending and social safety net, that it blows my mind that you are focusing your attention on the possibility that somebody's taking advantage of the bottom of the barrel government assistance. And instead of looking at, the corporations like Google and Amazon and all of these other big tech companies or hedge fund managers on Wall Street, who not only don't pay their taxes, like, I don't know, Donald Trump, who paid $750 in taxes, they don't only pay their taxes, they end up getting money back. They end up getting money back from the government because they are job creators. But that is neither here nor there.
Food, land, crops, like money, whatever it is, there is plenty in the United States. We have the infrastructure to support everyone in this country, like significantly more than we do currently. Warren's wealth tax is something that I was really, really in favor of. And it's not something that those people are going to miss. Like, it's not like you're taking their livelihood from them. You're simply repurposing a part of their livelihood that they're...
Welfare programs also reduce the crime rate, right? Whenever you are lifting people out of abject poverty and they no longer have to resort to alternative means to make ends meet, they're no longer forced into survival mode under any means necessary, then crime rate absolutely goes down.
Honestly, probably never going to get the opportunity to use in the first place, and making it so that other people can be at least a slingshot closer. So in that respect, I think like conservative ideology tends to be stingier, if you will.
What America needs to do more is to compare itself to other countries and like entities that have similar wealth. Like in my political science class, like we're comparing the United States to the European Union. Countries in the EU at large like provide so many more social services to their people, and their people are so much happier, and the wealth gap in America is so much greater than it is there. I'm always willing to hear what the other side has to say, but like I'm pretty well versed in politics at this point, and like I know that like I honestly don't really agree with any conservative ideals.
I think for me there can be like a lot of unlikely allies, but I think it depends on what the outcome is of that conservative thinking, like whether or not I might be opening to listening to it. So like if they're like, okay, I really want to stimulate the economy, we need more jobs, and then the how is through green jobs and green infrastructure, like that's something that could definitely have bipartisan support. Like I'm talking with a church that is really passionate and really wants to take a bold stance on climate. And if I would have just kind of shut them out because they do have some conservative ideologies, then I feel like, maybe we wouldn't be able to, I guess, progress. I don't want my ego to get so big where I think that the only way to be is like me, but that doesn't justify policies that lead to the oppression of other people. That's another situation, but I can have empathy for them.
I believe Joe Biden will win this election.
Somewhat agree.
I agree, but this is me knocking on wood.
Somewhat agree.
Strongly agree.
Agree.
I'm not willing to let the universe think that I believe anything different, and I'm not willing to even let the words from my mouth escape to encourage any kind of taking away from that outcome. When I get super down in the dumps, I go on Twitter to @Trump_regrets and just see posts from people who are like, I can't believe I voted for you in 2016. I'm voting for Biden now. And like, yeah, dude, just to see like how many people have defected, and to even see the people who hold themselves accountable in person, like looking now, they're like, hey, I thought maybe something different would be would be by switching it up and not sending a politician in office in 2016. I am so sorry.
It makes me hopeful that like in the same way, like a ton of people have defected from Trump. I literally do not see the opposite at all. Like I don't see anyone like who's like previously like Democrat and he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna vote for Trump. Like no one is saying that, which makes me like very, very, very happy.
I mean, I put somewhat agree because like it depends. Like it depends on us doing the work behind the scenes to like make that shit happen. Like elections aren't won because like people get complacent. And so like I don't want people to think for a day between now and November 3rd that like we can take our foot off the pedal. Like people are like, oh, Biden is up 15 points nationally. And I'm like, yeah, Hillary was up like 5 points nationally. And what did that do for her? Like we have to just keep working to make this shit happen. It's just going to be a fight like literally every single day from now until election day.
That was great, you guys.
Bye. Nice meeting y'all. Thank you so much.
If Amy C3 endorses I'm All In, you mean endorses Joe Biden for president?